Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Is Aaron Rodgers finally about to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers? We talk about that and answer more of your questions here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. Go to FanDuel.com to get started there. We'll have more on them later. All right, Steelers fans, we are starting to get actual stuff a little here and there with Aaron Rodgers, maybe actually finally not committing, he hasn't done it yet, but a sign that maybe he could be deciding soon. Of course, owners' meetings and everything was happening. Art Rooney did speak on it. Jeremy Fowler reported, said that Art Rooney basically re-engaged with the media, repeating what he said back during owners' meetings, saying that the Steelers won't wait forever, but a little while longer. When asked for a follow-up, he basically said, a little while longer, I'll say the same thing. So that was said. And of course, here we are, Aaron Rodgers. That was said back when owners' meetings are happening. They'll wait. They won't wait forever, but they'll wait for long enough. And then, time has passed since. Here we are in late May, and OTAs start next week. There's 2 weeks of OTAs, and then the Steelers go into mandatory mini camp on the week of June 10th through the 12th. So there's time for that to happen. And the question is, will Aaron Rodgers show up at all? Or will he just retire? Will he just be like, you know what, I'm done? Well, I think we're getting more and more inclination that he is actually going to be joining the Steelers. Like I've been saying that I thought he would. He's probably just waiting for whatever deadline that he's personally waiting for. Adam Schefter said recently on ESPN, he said, quote, my guess he's getting up at Pittsburgh. He said, I think we heard Art Rooney speak on it, but he said he expects Aaron Rodgers to sign there, and they have a mandatory mini camp June 10th to 12th. He thinks that Rodgers will be there in that next week or so. So I think part of this is Aaron Rodgers. He's been up there. He's an older quarterback. He certainly is trying to, I guess, preserve himself and not go through the rigors of the full off season. But if you're the Steelers, you need men. So you're trying to figure out what it's going to be. He's going to be 42 this season. When he plays, he turns 42 in December. And I think the big thing here is for the Steelers, they have to get him in still. But as I've said, I think that when there was that meeting where Aaron Rodgers came to the Steelers, I think there is a tacit behind the doors agreement. Like, hey, I'm going to come in. It's going to be some stuff that's going on, but trust that I'll be there. And, we got, and the Steelers, like, as Aaron Rodgers is telling them that, they can't just, they can take him for his word, but they can't bank on it. Like you can't bank on your whole franchise on it. And I don't think they have. I think, again, that's why they wanted to bring back Mason Rudolph, was to have a guy in their system that knew their system, that knew their guys, and could play and could, start for a year if just needed for a pinch to get to next year. And I think that's the position that they put themselves in. But again, they do want Aaron Rodgers to be in Pittsburgh for at least this season. He's turned out to be their option. Again, he wouldn't have been my option. I still would have tried to keep Justin Fields or Russell Wilson over him. But I think when you're looking at it, you're trying to hope that Aaron Rodgers in a system where it won't be leaning on him to try to lead the way entirely. Maybe you can put him in a positive offense for him that works a little bit better for him. And we'll talk about his mixing with Arthur Smith in the next segment, because we've had quite a few people ask about Arthur Smith on our Locked On Steelers call-in line. But to me, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to join Pittsburgh because he wants to be on a team that's been competitive. This isn't like the Jets where, they are trying to turn everything around and he's be a big part of that. He's joining a team that's made the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 seasons and just can't get over the hump of getting further in the playoffs than just making it there. And with that, he's jumping on a foundation that's been pretty solid of a team. And if he can bring his expertise, his expert knowledge of the game, and his ability to process defenses, which he still does have, like Aaron Rodgers ain't the same guy that he was in his prime when he could move a lot better and he could do a lot more crazy things with the ball, but he can still play at a high level. He can still be a guy that can play it to an offense, and I think be that kind of that kind of quarterback that they need in the Steelers offense that does the right things but doesn't have to do too much, because this needs to be an offense that again runs the football well. The question will be, can he get into Pittsburgh and can he set up that rapport? To me, I think one thing that Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers could be overlooking as far as importance is if this does drag on into minicamp and Aaron Rodgers doesn't show, or he signs when he wants to sign, because again, he still hasn't signed with the Steelers. It's not that he's not a Pittsburgh Steeler yet officially. But if he doesn't, it could become truly irritating to the Steelers teammates if he keeps continuing to be the story, and every day during OTAs and then minicamp, if he doesn't show for that. I think he will show for that, but if every day they're just being asked about it, that's not a way to endear yourself to your teammates when you're supposed to be the quarterback that everyone's trying to protect and everyone's trying to work with moving forward. I think the big thing with Aaron Rodgers right now, whatever he's going through, he's appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's popping up at concerts. He's doing things. He's living life. Okay, that's cool. But when he gets into Pittsburgh, he needs to hit the ground running with building rapport with DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, this offensive line, kind of been building his cadence up with those guys. He needs to show that, like, hey, he's able to do the things that make that pros do when they have his kind of experience. Again, this is a guy who's been a 4-time MVP quarterback in the NFL. And I look at that and I think that there's something there the Steelers can latch onto. But that's why the Steelers have been patient, because here's the other thing is that, like, closing the door on Aaron Rodgers just to close the door on Aaron Rodgers, I think that would be a mistake unless there was some very much better option out there right now. If Justin Fields was still a free agent, he wouldn't be. He would have been snatched up. But if Justin Fields is still somehow gettable, I'd understand being like, hey, we're trying to wait to see what happens there before this, because I do think Justin Fields' upside as a young player is something to bring more to the table than what Aaron Rodgers has at times. But I also think that if you're the Steelers and you're kind of in this situation right now, he's the option that you have left. And so you wait to see if you can get it. And if you can get it, great. He'll come in. I think he will. I think that a lot of this stuff about, him trying to figure things out, I think maybe he's trying to just push so that he only has to do mini camp. I can't say for certain, but I do think that we're seeing enough signs that he is going to be in Pittsburgh, and that could come pretty soon. So that the Steelers can get the ball rolling with him getting used to teammates and them finally building some chemistry moving forward after he does sign with the Steelers. We'll keep you up to date on that situation. Maybe he does sign next week, as Adam Schefter suggested on ESPN, or this drags on into minicamp. And if it does, it's going to be very interesting, because again, I don't know how he'll be endearing himself to his teammates when he's been the distraction and he wasn't even on the team. So that'll be interesting of a road to get if and when they get there. When we're going to take a quick break, we come back, we get to your calls on the Locked On Steelers call-in line, and there's some Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers questions that I was specifically holding for a day like today. So we'll get to those questions next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action with FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live all throughout the game. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have even more ways than ever to play smart and win big. While the Knicks and Pacers face off in the East, the Timberwolves and the Thunder throw down in the West. Stars like Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, SGA, and Tyrese Halliburton are sure to light up box scores and win people plenty of money on prop bets. And if you're new to FanDuel, you can win $200 in bonus bets if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. It's a great deal to take advantage of during the NBA playoffs. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, sign up today by going to FanDuel.com. And if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more with that, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here today by taking more of your questions here from the Locked On Steelers call-in line. As always, you can call in to the call-in line at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. We'll try to get your question on the show. And we had a few that were piling up about Arthur Smith or about Aaron Rodgers. Well, let's get some of those out of the way. This one comes from Jim out in Maplewood, New Jersey.
Hey, Chris, this is Jim calling from Maplewood, New Jersey. Got a quick question for you about quarterbacking scheme for next year. As everyone knows, we have trouble passing over the middle. I don't know if that's just Arthur Smith or just trouble in general the past few years. But Aaron Rodgers is sitting out there with the possibility of coming to Pittsburgh, and he has pretty good stats over the middle, I recall. Can you talk a little bit about what we have currently regarding throwing over the middle statistics for Mason Rudolph and what it would look like if we brought Aaron Rodgers in and how that might help use the tight ends or some slash slant plays over the middle? Great. Thanks a lot. Love the show.
Thank you, Jim. As always, you can call in like Jim did at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. So, Jim, let's address a few things. It wasn't just Russell Wilson that didn't throw over the middle. The Steelers quarterbacks really haven't done that a whole lot for a few years now, but particularly because they've been quarterbacks the Steelers don't fully trust to protect the ball and to not be aggressive at the right times because they haven't been, franchise quarterbacks in their prime or what have you. But that's more of a result of the Steelers trying to say, hey, we're trying to keep the ball away from, giving turnovers away. That's a big part of what the Steelers are trying to do on offense while they don't have a superstar quarterback or, an upper tier quarterback. That's when I think the big difference is there because, when Ben Roethlisberger was with the Steelers, he threw over the middle all the time. It was not an issue. Right now, it's more so that, look, if you can isolate and get guys on the sideline, that's an easier way to protect the football, and you can still get big plays over there. And it does work at times, but eventually you do need that middle part of the field. And that's something that Aaron Rodgers can unlock. He's taller than Russell Wilson, so he feels like it. And I think when you're Aaron Rodgers and you're a four-time MVP, you're a future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback and all this stuff, I think Aaron Rodgers could come in and kind of make his demands. And he's going to be like, look, we're doing it this way. We're doing it that way. I think that Arthur Smith is also going to be willing to hear those out and work with him in that respect. And I think that that's where it could be interesting is if their relationship plays off well and the two become pretty solid together in their chemistry. That's going to be a big part of this is can Aaron Rodgers fit in with Arthur Smith and can Arthur Smith fit in with Aaron Rodgers as far as how they want to operate this offense. But I do think that one thing that could open up more is the middle part of the field because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to test the middle part of the field, but he's going to do it in ways that I think are smart. He's going to avoid mistakes as much as possible. And I think that he, as a veteran quarterback, a super veteran quarterback, he's a guy who I think can be, a difference maker in that respect. And I think that he could be a guy that helps one, protect the football for the Steelers, but also does exploit the middle part of the field and attack that way. So I say all that to say, I think Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith, that won't be a problem throwing over the middle because I think that Arthur Smith is going to allow Aaron Rodgers to do it, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be happy to do it. And so it'll just be about, does he make good decisions when he does so for sure there. We got another question on Arthur Smith. This one comes from Joe all the way in San Jose, New Mexico. Joe, take it away.
My name is Joe. I'm calling from San Jose, New Mexico. And I would like to know why nobody is talking about our offensive coordinator. Are we handling him with kid gloves because he has a delicate temperament. I felt that the play calling since he has come to the Steelers has been questionable. I feel that he did not maximize particularly Najee Harris, but also George Pickens. I don't know why people aren't looking at the getting rid of all these offensive players as having something to do with the play caller. I know Tomlin has a hand in that also, but is there a chance we're looking for a new offensive coordinator?
So, Joe, to answer your question, first of all, thanks for calling in. Appreciate all the questions. 412-223-6644. Let's rewind a little bit here. Arthur Smith came to the Steelers offense after the just debacle of Matt Canada and needing to fire him in the middle of last season. And he rose in his first year, the Steelers, from being 28th in scoring offense to 16th. Now, 16th, nothing to brag home about. It's literally middle of the league. But that's also what we had been talking about, the Steelers just trying to get to that point for so many years, because the year before that, they were 26th in the league. They were 21st in the league the year before that. And they did have that 1 year in 2020 where, they were red hot early in the season. They were 12th. But then the year before that, in 2019, with no Ben Roethlisberger, 27th. So you think about the years in which they either had last year old man Ben Roethlisberger, or they've had a quarterback not named Ben Roethlisberger. They had since 2019, 4 times where their offense ranked above 20th, 3 times where it ranked above 26th, below, you know what I mean, like worse than those numbers. So this was the first time since 2020, the Steelers offense, and it's really the first time ever the Steelers offense in the Mike Tomlin era without Ben Roethlisberger had ranked at least in the teens. And I think that it's not something to, write a book about, but it is a sign that I do think Arthur Smith, can get things to work. It took time for Todd Haley to get things to work. People hated Todd Haley when he first came to the Steelers. Things weren't clicking right away. He needed to find his rhythm. I remember, figuring out how to use Antonio Brown the right way. It takes time for that kind of stuff to develop and chemistries to be put together. And that's what the Steelers are trying to do. That's what I think the Steelers are working very hard at, is to try to build build this offensive nucleus, be patient, wait for the right times, and let these things grow naturally so they can be a leading group. And then they're coming out and they're making a difference on the offensive side of the ball. And then you're trying to do so many more things schematically that open up because of that. But I think that's the thing, that Todd Haley eventually got the guns to be a good offensive coordinator for the Steelers. I think, to be fair to Arthur Smith, I don't think he's necessarily had that I don't think he's had that. And I think that's something that the Steelers, if you are the Steelers and you look at how you're looking at things, I don't think Arthur Smith's in danger of losing his job from the Steelers firing him, unless it gets like very, very bad, like that Canada bad. And I just don't think that's gonna happen with him. I really do think that if the Steelers ever wanted to move on from Arthur Smith, the only way it's happening before his contract is up in 3 years is if he gets a head coaching interview, which means they probably did something good with the Steelers, right? Like the Steelers run game revitalized and the offense works and it's humming, and maybe with old man Aaron Rodgers, they have won a couple playoff games. Like if something crazy like that happens, I could see Arthur Smith being snatched up, and then you get rid of him, because other teams want him. But that, to me, is where it could get there. I don't think that they're getting rid of Arthur Smith for a couple years, unless unless like it gets very, very bad. And like, not that it hasn't been pretty rough at times, but when I say very, very bad, I mean like it gets back down to when they're in the bottom. They're consistently in like the worst 5 offenses in the NFL. With their rankings across the board, which they were at times under Matt Canada. So that's that point there on that question. I don't think they're firing Arthur Smith this year, but I do think this is a gut check year where he needs this offensive line to develop. And if it doesn't, that could make it tougher on him when in his next contract negotiations. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to answer a question about the wide receiver trade situation, because the rumors were flying about the Steelers. We addressed one of them in particular, but I want to get more into this topic with the next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here on a Friday. Also, I forgot to say at the top of the show, we were going to have Jenna Hunter on. She wasn't available. It's been rough, man. It's the summer, people going through stuff, but we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We will be having more guests on next week as OTAs return. But let's get to this next question. This one comes from Dr. Bob out in Erie, Pennsylvania, asking about the Chris Olave trade situation that we brought up earlier this week. Here's Dr. Bob.
Hey, Chris. This is Dr. Bob from Erie, Pennsylvania. Just thinking about how the Steelers could go about acquiring Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints as their wide receiver 2. What if the Steelers sent a third-round pick and then swapped first rounds with New Orleans? That could be highly beneficial for the Steelers, possibly for New Orleans as well. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Love the show. Continued to watch. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Appreciate you calling in from Erie, PA. As always, you can call in at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. I think a big part of this is, and as I said before, I don't think that the Saints are coming up off Chris Olave. I think that he's part of the plan moving forward. He's a really good receiver. They need to keep on to the really good guys that they have as they try to rebuild. But they do need to figure that out. I also think that the Steelers might look at his, head injury history and might wonder, okay, well, what's that there? But I want to reiterate what I said before. The Steelers did not call the Saints to say, hey, we want Chris Olave. Can we take him off your hands? The conversations that are had there are more like, hey, trying to figure out what you guys would want for him if we were to make an offer. And, then Chris, if the Saints on the other side of the phone is like, well, might inflate it a little bit, but that's kind of what the GM's job is right now. When you're doing things, you're researching things, you're looking up numbers from other things, and that's where you're looking up possibilities. So that, like, hey, the Saints will want a third round pick for Chris Olave versus name a wide receiver somewhere that you want. They'll take a fourth rounder for this guy, and knowing the market could be set there. But I think another part of that is when you're looking at how the Steelers are going to choose who that wide receiver is. Because I do think the Steelers make another move at wide receiver. I do think that they don't wait too long. As when I say too long, I mean into the season, like the regular season, to do this. I think they find a way to address this position. But I think part of it is they want to see Aaron Rodgers walk through the door for it first. And then they want to talk to him, sit down in the office and say, hey, what kind of receiver would be the best receiver to work with him? Would it be Alan Lazard? Would it be him because of their connection? Would it be a guy, or would it be someone that doesn't have a connection with Aaron Rodgers from playing in his playing time in the NFL? Could it be Keenan Allen because he's a separator, and he's more so about it being a technician and things like that. Those are the things that I would look at if I'm if I'm trying to explore things here. But I don't think that the Steelers are not looking to make a move at wide receiver 2. I do think they are, but I also think they're trying to not give up a bunch of real trade capital for the NFL draft, because again, their big plan, I think, is to move up in the NFL draft, and they have good ammunition to do so right now, as it stands. So I don't think that they are. I don't think that they're going to trade for Chris Olave. I don't think the Saints are going to allow them to trade for Chris Olave, but we'll see in some time, because the Saints. The one thing about the Saints is their salary cap situation is terrible. It's fine right now with 22.6, but they owe they are going to be $54.7 million over the cap next year. So they need to figure things out and who they want to sign to their futures and all these things like that. That could make things really rough. But again, looking at where the Steelers are. I think there's plenty of options out there, and now Omar Khan is just exploring to see which ones would be the most sense for us to make a move on. I saw there was a note on like Terry McLaurin was not showing up for things, and people were wondering, are the Commanders is trouble in paradise? And it turns out there was no trouble; it was just resting. I think that there's going to be a time for the Steelers to make a move. I think that Terry McLaurin's staying with the Commanders. That's just going to happen. Like, I think that they have the cap space. He's a playmaker. They got Jaden Daniels. They're keeping him. But the Steelers, they're going to wait around for that team that maybe they're not right there. Maybe they're not on the cusp of being, in the Super Bowl like the Commanders were last year. Maybe they do have a player that they want to unload. And that's where the Saints do kind of fit, right? Because the Saints have a lot of rebuilding to do, and getting rid of Chris Olave will make a lot of sense, but they also are trying to rebuild. They need leaders. And I think they could see Chris Olave being one of those guys. But there are wide receivers out there. It's just every year you're going to hear about the guy that maybe he's getting a little too much money and maybe they want to come up off him. Maybe a guy like that is Michael Pittman for the Colts. He's got 2 more years left on his current deal with them. He's a $23 million cap hit this year, $29 million cap hit next year. He's 28 years old right now. Maybe that's a guy the Steelers could find a way to squeeze something for. But again, I don't think they should try to necessarily overcommit to doing that and sending away draft picks that are going to be vital to trying to get the quarterback that they really want. I think signing a guy will be perfect. But again, I think this is all predicated on when does Aaron Rodgers sign with the Steelers, and after that, what happens with the Steelers, with how do they pursue, what type of receiver do they want to pursue? Is it a receiver that he's worked with, or is it a receiver that they say, hey, this is going to be the best matchup for you in our system specifically, not someone that you've played with, more so someone that we think fits what we're trying to do. That's what I think the holdup is, and that's why I don't think they're going to be trading for Chris Olave just yet. They might make another move. They might make something else happen there. But we'll see it all play out very soon if Aaron Rodgers does come sign within a week or so, as the Steelers get closer to minicamp. That's here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. This has been a Friday episode. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, at Carter Critiques, same handle everywhere. You can find me in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me here every Friday or every Monday through Friday on the Locked On Steelers podcast, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube, talking about the Steelers. Back here Monday as we get ready for OTAs to start up next week, right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.